Page 110 continued. Where is Prabha? Roared the Thanedar. He has evaporated, the eater of his masters, said Lady Todarmal, hiding her breasts under her sari and self-consciously withdrawing into the hall of her house, in an attempt to reflect the modest dignity of her position as Lady Todarmal and the mother of the Thanedar, to the English Inspector of Police. Go and drag him out. Teja Singh and Yar Muhammad ordered the Thanedar. The door of the factory was opening as the police constables rushed towards it, because Prabha was coming out, followed by his workmen. Come out, you swine! Come out, you dog! Raved the policemen as they blindly flourished their batons and collared Prabha. When they wrested Prabha from the embrace of Munnu, Tulsi and Bonga and brought him out, kicking him from behind, the creditors howled like beasts. Bring the dirty dog out, the dirty hillman, the scum, push him out. Take him to the police station quickly, said the English Inspector of Police, eyeing Prabha suspiciously. Looks a bad character. Yes, a rogue of number 10, said the Thanedar. Then he turned towards his mother and said in his own language, Lock up the door of the factory till I come back. Next he turned to all the creditors and said, Come to the Kotwali tomorrow, all of you. Your evidence will be taken. Meanwhile, go to your shops. We will deal with him. Yes, Janab, said Thanedar Sahab. Yes, Thanedar Sahab, agreed the merchants, joining hands to the mighty symbol of the Angrezi Sarkar, whom they dreaded and respected as they dreaded and respected nothing else. Teja Singh and Yar Muhammad led Prabha away through the narrow width of the gully, past whispering curious sightseers. End of page 110, now page 111. All of whom seemed to be fascinated by this show of force. There were tears rolling down Prabha's cheeks as he looked back to the window where his wife stood weeping. Look straight, you swine, and face towards the Kotwali, roared the Thanedar, who walked with his colleague and officer, the Inspector of Police, behind the constables. Munnu, Tulsi, Bonga and Maharaj followed. Munnu sobbing, Tulsi grim and pale, Bonga staring wildly and straining to speak, Maharaj slobbering without saying a word. As the procession passed through Catskiller's Lane and turned into the book bazaar, which led to the police station under the shadow of the clock tower, the passers-by and the shopkeepers stood to watch, some dazed, others whispering, others babbling, still others casting curses and abuse on the man whom they had once respected as Sethji. A fair-complexioned, hawk-nosed Mohammedan sergeant was puffing at the tube of a hubble-bubble as he sat on a charpai. Make him confess his crime, Pandey Khan ordered the Thanedar, arrested for non-payment of debt. The sergeant stood at attention, saluted his officers, and retreating to a room behind a veranda, brought a cane. Now confess, you rogue, he said, coming up to Prabha, where Teja Singh and Yar Muhammad still held him. Confess where you have buried your money. Come on, own up, Huzur, said Prabha, joining his hands. I have no money buried anywhere, but I have stock. I only crave your forgiveness, and I will pay up every pice that I owe to my creditors. You are barking an untruth. You lie. You lover of your mother, shouted Pandey Khan. Confess the truth. And he dealt him 1, 2, 3 sharp stripes with his cane. I have told the truth, wailed Prabha. Huzur, I do not lie. You are no angel, you son of Iblis, shouted the sergeant, striking Prabha a blow on his face. It is the truth, Sarkar, it is the truth, Prabha wailed, lifting his handcuffed hands. Is the Thanedar Sahib lying then, you swine, and the Inspector Sahib there? The sergeant growled. Confess, you dog, confess. And he struck him blow after blow, in a wild orgy of excitement, his face set, his lips stiff, and his body towering over the poor man's frame. End of page number 111. Now page 112. Oh, don't beat him, cried Munnu and Tulsi. It is Master Ganpat who is at fault. The sergeant stopped to take breath. Strike him like this, shouted the inspector of police, striking the sergeant hard to show him how to do it. And then he turned round to the boys who stood at his heels, as much absorbed in looking at his white skin as in watching their master being beaten, and he roared, "Jao! Run away, you swine!" roared the Thanedar after him in an accent which tore his throat. "Run away," he said. "This is not a fair." And he struck them with his birch on their naked backs and feet. "Oh, beat me, Huzur, beat me," shrieked Prabha. "Beat me as much as you like, but spare those boys." "Keep quiet, you swine," said the sergeant, waving the cane. "You look after your own skin and don't try to turn this into a regular fair. You have had me beaten for being mild. To you. Take this, you dog." And he lashed Prabha again, sharp, till the swish of the glistening cane was all that had occupied the air. Prabha's wails became one long howl. "Oh my God! Oh my God! Where are you?" Munnu, Tulsi, Bonga and Maharaj stood looking, now at their master, now at the flawless skin above them, sky above them, a pain in their hearts, but not a tear in their eyes. They could neither stifle nor express the hurt in their souls. It was as if someone had died when they returned home, as if Prabha, their master, had died. The tall, long room seemed to echo the soft thud of their bare feet as they walked up from the courtyard in the residential part of the house, especially Maharaj. The idiot's footsteps and Bonga's flat feet fell heavily, and the atmosphere seemed to tremble with the anguish of their mistress's tears. "Sit down, Oye Maharaj and Bonga," Tulsi said with a sense of propriety that beckoned his sensitiveness to the undertones of grief. Munnu had begun to tiptoe towards the window overlooking the gully by which Prabha's wife lay huddled. But he had hardly reached the middle of the room when he stopped. Somehow the sight of that woman, broken down by grief, was a barrier. End of page 112. Now page 113. He had been urged by a spontaneous feeling to go to her as he used to go to his mother when he came back home from play and found her crying. But something had happened to him now. Something had changed within him. He had outgrown the natural unconsciousness of his childhood and begun to recognize his emotions. He could not go near the woman. "I will go and ask Ustad Ganpat if he will come and bail Ustad Prabha out," said Tulsi, coming up to Munnu. Munnu lifted his downcast eyes and stared at him with a contracted face. "Come, Oye Maharaj and Bonga," said Tulsi, going to the door. "Come, I will take you to eat a little fresh air." He spoke to them as if they were small children, ignorant of the ways of the world. They got up wearily and followed him. As Munnu stood in the room now, the half-broken, half-smothered sobs of his mistress seemed to fill the air, as his senses were blinded to everything around him. For a moment there was a complete silence, the suspended, long drawn-out, tense silence before a sob breaks out, overloaded with the memory of pain. One sound, one indelicate, awkward sound, Munnu felt, would be a violation. He looked round and surveyed the things in his room. The brass utensils glistened in a corner. The floral design of 2 earthen pitchers wove an intricate pattern which puzzled him. The mango design on the cover of a quilt which hung from a line among the dharis and blankets, sheets and eiderdowns obtruded on his gaze and annoyed him. Then the sob broke, rending his heart with its reverberations. reverberations. He dragged his feet up to where his mistress lay. Do get up, he said, bending his head as soon as he stood by her. She sobbed hysterically now, and the flow of sympathy having relieved her suffering, he knelt down, putting his hand on her arm, and tried to raise her. Do get up, he said. She sobbed more bitterly than ever. Oh, I do not know where to go, child, she cried. I do not know what to do. Slowly she lifted her head and leant on his shoulder. The warmth of her breath on his throat, the soft tender caress. End of page 113. Now page 114. Of her cheeks on his body seemed to play on his mind. He felt stiff and uncomfortable. Then a faint tremor on her lips seemed to whisper the memory of some forgotten emotion he had felt in his sleep. He looked at her ebony face. The black hair which strayed over her forehead, over the dark lines of her eyebrows, was unadorned today with the gold flowers which usually framed it. Her high cheekbones were flushed and made her tears in her black eyes well like pools of light. Her jaws defined her eyes with a gentle strength that failed all the at the chin. Munnu's memory went back to the days when he had been ill, and she had caressed him with embraces, kissed him on the forehead, and soothed him with the haunting refrains of a hill song. He pressed her close to him. He felt her quivering. He had now thrown over the dumb burden of self-consciousness. He felt released, and for a moment he forgot himself in her warmth, so that only darkness, utter darkness, spread before his eyes, and his blood boiled with the love that crushed him with wild torture. The fire filled his eyes with hot tears. He broke into a passion of grief more poignant, more heart-rending than any he had ever known. Oh, don't cry, he said to her. Don't cry. Don't cry, my child. You should not cry, she said to him. There was a soft thud of footsteps, and then a continuous heavy thud, accompanied by voices in the fast-falling darkness. Munnu and his mistress still cried. Look, oye Munnu, Master Prabha has come back, said Tulsi's voice. Why are you weeping, both of you? Said Prabha, sinking on the charpai near the door. Did you think I was dead or something? His tone was slightly resentful. His face was pale and haggard. He lay down shivering. Bhool. Why are you weeping, both of you? Said Prabha, sinking on to the charpai near the door. Did you think I was dead or something? His tone was slightly resentful. His face was pale and haggard. He lay down shivering. Did they leave you then, Ustadji? Said Munnu, coming up to him impetuously. Yes. They had nothing against me, no warrant to arrest me. He said more to his wife than to Munnu. I am bankrupt, of course, and I will try to pay all my creditors at least half their money. But the police beat me for nothing. Hi, my bones ache and I feel cold. Give me a quilt or a blanket. And he continued to murmur incomprehensibly, deliriously. End of page 114. Now page 115. As he lay unconscious, the blue and swollen patches of his skin stared out of his tunic and dhoti, which were torn to rags, and the source of blood on his body seemed to ooze fresh forth a decayed smell. Beginning of page 115. Prabha's wife had rushed to the head of the bed and pressed his body as she struggled to stop her tears under cover of her head apron. Munnu covered him with blankets while Tulsi went to fetch a doctor who lived at the top of Cat Killer's Lane. After the doctor had been, both Tulsi and Munnu went to the chemist in the main corner of the bazaar to fetch the medicines and ointments which he had persuaded. They walked silently through the night. They walked silently through the uneven darkness of the cloth munar, past a narrow lane which led on to one side of the shrine of Saint Das, and on the other to Church of All Souls. There they took a turning by the high-domed hall, past Sher Khan's antique mosque to the wider main bazaar, where the Indian style stops gave place to a feeble imitation of they thought about their master's chances of living and of his possible death, and they banged their heads down as they sped along. They walked silently. Prabha's wife had rushed to the head of the bed and pressed his body as she struggled to stop her tears under cover of her head apron. Munnu covered him with blankets while Tulsi went to find a doctor who lived at the top of Cat Killer's Lane. After the doctor had been, both Tulsi and Munnu went to the chemist in the main bazaar to fetch the medicines and ointments he had prescribed. They walked silently through the uneven darkness of the cloth bazaar, past a narrow lane which led to one side of the shrine of Saint Das, and on the other the Church of All Souls. There they took a turning by the high-domed town hall, past Sher Khan's mosque to the wide main bazaar, where Indian-style shops gave place to feeble limitations of European sizes. They thought about their master's chances of living and of his possible death, and they hung their heads down as they sped along. On the way back, however, the medicines which Sorabji, the Parsi chemist, had given them filled them with hope because of the sententious wrappings around them, and they got relaxed. Where did Maharaj and Bonga go? Munnu asked. Why have they not come back with you? Master Ganpat keeps them at his factory, said Tulsa. He abused them and asked them to work for him. They were too afraid of him to come back. Where did Maharaj and Bonga go? Munnu asked. They did not come back with you? Master Ganpat kept them at his factory, said Tulsi. He abused them and asked them to work for him. They were too afraid of him to come back. Munnu received the information in silence. He hated Ganpat, but he was too tired by the succession of the day's events to express his hate in any way. He stalked through the darkness as if he were heading for oblivion. But gradually the curled up body of a labourer asleep on the pillow of his arm on the ground, or the boards of a closed shop glimmered in the light of a spark of fire in someone's hubble-bubble, and he strained to see it and to define for himself the answer to the question who it could be. We will also have to go and sleep in the open at the grain market tonight if we are to get jobs, lifting weights tomorrow and help Master Prabha out, Tulsi said, divining his companion's thoughts. They did not say anything to each other. End of page number 115. Now page 116. The master fell sound asleep after he had taken the medicine. He sweated and his breathing was regular. His wife sat by his side. She would keep a vigil, both Munnu and Tulsi knew. So they sauntered out into the night with a view to sleeping in the grain market, where the work of bearing weights was supposed to be easy to find. They emerged from Cat Killer's Lane into the Papadam Bazaar, which reeks day and night of a blend of hot spices, lentils and cheese gone bad. Then they turned back into the wide bamboo bazaar, past Santokh Singh's Dharamshala, and entered into the salt market, where the city bulls congregate to lick the blocks of salt which the pious Hindus leave for them outside their shops. The grain market was about 100 yards away and connected by the Hanuman Street. They had walked blindly through the oppressive hot night, scarcely illuminated by one dim-eyed moon. They were half asleep and tired and heavy and broken, and their one thought was of rest. But the eerie noises of the Indian night, the sudden jerky noises of consumptive throats clearing themselves, or mouthfuls of spittle, spittle, as they leaned out of the windows of their chubbaras, 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 or from the flat roof of the houses. The electric shock of crickets and grasshoppers chirping in a temple compound, the weird squeal of some unlucky cat frightened by the howling of a hungry dog, which itself had started in its sleep because a scared bull belched like the thunder which follows lightning. His grim and tense atmosphere, charged with the spirits of all the dead who according to the Hindus come to visit their homes at night, obtruded itself on the souls of the boys. And as they sank into the ruts of the last patch of muddy road, and they pushed their muddy feet forward, the narrow, twisted opening of the grain market disclosed a more oppressive scene. The square courtyard, flanked on all sides by low mud shops, flimsy huts, and tall, close, five-storied houses with variegated cement facades, arches, colonnades, and cupolas, was crowded with rude wooden carts with pointed their shafts to the sky like so many crucifixes, crammed with snake-horned bullocks and stray rhinoceros-like bulls and skinny calves bespattered with their own dung as they sat or stood munching pieces of straw, snuffling their muzzles aimlessly, or masticating the grass which they had some hours before, congested with the bodies of the coolies. End of page 116. Now page 117. Colored like the earth on which they lay snoring or crouching around the communal hubble-bubble, or shifting to explore a patch clear to the puddles on which to rest. The smell of stagnant drains, rotten grains, fresh cow dung and urine, the foul savour of human and animal breath, and the pungent fumes of smouldering fuel cakes all combined to produce an odorous atmosphere in the compound, sickening until you were used to it, or till your attention was turned to keeping clear of the sprawling naked bodies, glistening with sweat, or sheeted like ghosts in a vain attempt to escape the flies and mosquitoes that hovered like an invisible plague in the darkness. Munnu and Tulsi were already slapping their bare arms and legs where the mosquitoes had assailed them as they entered the courtyard, and they cursed furiously. "Oh, these mosquitoes, the seducers of their daughters! Who is this abusing?" came a sharp voice of a coolie from among a group. Munnu and Tulsi were slightly taken aback, as they had not noticed that they were cursing. "Abusing nobody, brother," said Tulsi tactfully. "Only these mosquitoes." "Who are you?" another voice asked. "Coolies," answered Munnu, assuming a casual air because he thought Tulsi's muslins might antagonize the labourers, while his own bare body would be a recommendation. "No room here for anyone," muttered a coolie, his naked body shining like black ebony, while he rubbed oil to keep the mosquitoes off. There was indeed no room, as the bodies lay in a sort of row, resting their heads on the wooden beam of a doorstep, shrouded in sheets. Munnu and Tulsi advanced cautiously through the jigsaw puzzle of 15 or more corpses lying helter-skelter round a cart. Then they threaded their way through sacks of grain up to where they thought was a clearing. "Who is that? If you are thieves, beware!" shouted a night watchman, who lay on a bedstead with his face aslant, a bamboo stick in his hand. "Coolies," answered Munnu. End of page 117. Now page 118. "Go away from the presence of this shop. Lalla Totaram does not allow any coolies to lie about near here. There is a cash box in this shop." "All right, Maharaj," Tulsi said, and led the way towards the north of the square, hoping to find a path somewhere among the hundreds of men who shifted and turned to and fro on their sides as they whispered, coughed, or sighed in the sweltering heat that stood even like some malevolent, obstinate clay god. The fantastic attitudes in which the coolies lay curled up here, unable to sleep and moaning Ram Ram, Sri Krishna or Hari Hari, irritated Munnu. He knew they were old, or at least middle-aged men, those who remembered the name of God, and Munnu was not feeling kindly towards the infinite after having seen the devout Prabha suffer. So he dragged Tulsi away towards the middle of the compound, where a mound of grain sacks stood covered with a large sheet of canvas. After a stealthy round the corners to see if there was not a chowkidar guarding the merchandise, he groped round for a freehold on the wall of the jute bundles. Not finding one, he crawled back to grope for something to climb up with. A pole stood some yards away, on top of which some merchants' pigeons nested. Munnu was going for it, but Tulsi held him fast. "I will be the mare for you to climb up, and then you can pull me to the top," he said, and he bent down. Munnu swiftly jumped onto his back and, balancing himself on Tulsi's spine, scrambled up to the heap. Then he dug his feet among the sacks and wiping the sweat off his hands, stretched his right arm down and dragged Tulsi up. It strained every muscle in his body, but there was a hot blast of wind blowing up there, and he sat feeling its warm breath caress his flesh. He surveyed the scene about him, half afraid that he and Tulsi might have been seen by the night watchman, who would order them down. But there were only corpses lying around, some on their sides, others on their backs, still others facing downwards, all contracting their limbs to occupy the smallest space, and bound up like knots of anguished, whose every breath seemed to ask the elements for the gifts of sleep. "Don't you want to sleep?" asked Tulsi, who was already succumbing to the exhaustion produced by the activities of the day. "Yes," said Munnu, but he kept on staring at the darkness emptily. End of page number 118, now page number 119. Unconsciously aware of the noises around him, the sighs which came mixed with the gurgling of water in someone's hubble-bubble, the hum of conversation, the notes of a beetle, and the hoarse cry of a frog. "What are you looking at?" he asked himself. The answer came, "Nothing." He lay down on his back. The surface of the sack of grain was round and comfortable. He faced the sky, a grey-blue sky with the dagger of a moon stabbing its side and shedding a few glistening drops of white-blooded stars. There was no meaning in the sky beyond that. He closed his eyes, and a picture of the congested roof of his master's house came to him, a picture of his own low bed among the lines of bedsteads. And now, he said to himself, "I am here far away from that home, and Prabha is lying ill in the big room downstairs, and Ganpat is in a different part of the town. Maharaj and Bonga perhaps lie in the new factory, sound asleep. The mistress will be thinking of us. She might be crying. Why did we come away? We should have stayed and been near the master and mistress. Supposing he should die?" The picture of Prabha lying dead was something he did not want to contemplate. He closed his eyes fast, and he had scarcely done so when he was asleep. He slept fitfully, contracting his hands into a fist as if he were clutching at a last straw to save himself from drowning. His body writhed as he turned on his sides. His nose twitched as he drew large quantities of breath. He moaned once or twice, as if the curves of his soul were straightening, smoothening from the coils caused by the impact of this horrible experience. When the heat of the night drifted into the cool of the dawn, the fever in Munnu's flesh abated, and he nestled close to the belly of a sack, as if it were the body of a warm-blooded woman. Neither the crowing of cocks in the houses of the weavers' lane beyond the courtyard, nor the twittering of myriads of sparrows, not even the insistent cawing of crows, awakened him or Tulsi as they awakened the coolies, the bullocks, the lame dogs, and the devout Hindu merchants. But the steel spokes of the sun that came trembling with heat, pierced his bare skin, and he awoke, his mouth parched, his eyelids glued, his limbs heavy and stale. He moved Tulsi's body lazily. The yellow-red sky of the morning, towering over the market, had blackened his form, and he felt dirty and unclean. End of page 119. Now page 120. "Come on, Tulsi," he said peevishly, rubbing his eyes. Tulsi rose suddenly. Munnu surveyed the scene. He did not know how to begin. Some of the coolies were bearing sacks of grain on their backs, from the two loaded bullock carts to a godown. Others sat smoking hubble bubble and beedies, washed themselves at a pump, or lay still, curled up in a miraculous sleep which looked like death in its complete negation of the hubbub about them. For life here, even before the business hours started, was a tide of seething humanity, jostling in an ebb and flow of colourful cross purposes. There were lalas going out in fine starched muslins and tussars from shop to temple and temple to shop, muttering Ram Ram Ram, Hari 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 Hari, Shri Shri Shri, and other incantations. No one did not know whether to Mammon or to God. And there was dark, copper-coloured men wearing next to nothing, swathed in patched-up rags, babbling, shouting, heaving, panting, or lying still, absolutely still, in complete motionlessness. Page number 120. Munnu took it all for granted, as if he had been used to it throughout his life. Only the mixture of types excited him. He had seen many Hindu hill coolies together, but he had never seen so many Kashmiri Mohammedan labourers or Sikh coolies mixed up. He wondered if the Hindus did not resent the violation of their religion by mixing with the Mohammedans. He hoped they did not, for he secretly recalled how he had bought a pot full of mutton curry with swollen bread at a Mohammedan cookshop one day when he went out to run an errand, because his mouth had watered at the smell of the spicy stuff steaming away on the oven. True, he had got into the shop in order to conceal himself from the sight of any passing Hindu who might recognize him, but he had not felt there was anything strange in violating the prevailing custom, except the guilt of having tasted a dish which the Mohammedan cooked better than the Hindus. It seemed that religion did not matter, for there before his eyes he could see a Rajput coolie accepting a Mohammedan hubble bubble. If the acceptance of the hookah and water were a test, surely the coolies had no religion. But he felt vaguely that they would not eat food from each other's hands. For himself, however, it did not matter, and anyway, whether it mattered or not did not matter at all. He was concerned about how to find a job. The blinding sunlight of mid-morning was completely on, and coming on, and they had not stirred. End of page 120. Now page 121. Tulsi, Tulsi, he said, turning round in panic. Let us hurry and join that crowd pressing round the shop which is opening. And he jumped down and scurried towards the thronging side of a clamorous crowd, surging to an wide godown which stood under a grotesquely painted four-storied house. Tulsi followed him leisurely, but he found it difficult to get through to the front. So wild was the rush for jobs by the taller and heftier coolies. He tried to push. Tulsi found him leisurely, but he found it difficult to get through to the front. So wild was the rush for jobs by the taller and heftier coolies. He tried to push, to scrape through the edges, to crawl under the legs of the crowd. He sweated with activity, but he did not get anywhere near the vantage point. He stood helplessly at the back, only hearing the shouts and curses, the oaths and the prayers that rose that arose from the throng. "Get back, you swine, get back!" shouted the merchant as he stood on top of his iron safe with the bamboo pole in his hand. "Get back, you rogues! None of you will get a job if you don't get back." "Oh Lalaji, I am Mohammed Butt. You employed me yesterday. I was a coolie," said. "Get back, you illegal begotten, get back." "Oh Lalaji, I can carry 2 wands on my back easily. Please employ me," another coolie said. "Get back, you rogue, get back. None of you will get a job this way." "La, only an anna a sack. I will take only an anna a sack to bear the sack from here to anywhere." A third appeal. "Get back, you swine, or I'll break your bones." Oh Lalaji, this was all that could be heard for some seconds, and then the creaking of the bamboo stick falling on hard bones, and the queer angry noises at the front of the crowd, the stamping of feet as they were pressed back, and the heaving of a wave after wave of men as they strained to escape from the rod. "Lala Thakurdas's shop is opening," someone shouted, and there was a frantic rush towards a big shop guarded by a door of iron rails. Munnu currently perceived the advisability of staying where he was, so that if the whole crowd fled away, he would get an easy job. When Tulsi came out from the front where he had insinuated himself, he said, End of page 121. Now page 122. He said, "Come on, Munnu." Munnu whispered, "Stay here. All these sheep are running away. We will get jobs." It happened as Munnu had foreseen, but he had not foreseen all. Only Munnu, Tulsi and the other coolies remained, while the others ran towards Lala Thakur Das's shop. "Come, you dogs, you have made me sweat," said the merchant, laying aside the bamboo stick. "Come and lift the sacks in the godown and load Rahmat's bullock cart, which is going to the railway station." From Gokul Chand to Mohanlal to Dali Brothers Exporters, Karachi. Munnu read the blue Hindustani inscription on the sacks of the grain, but he was too young to know the laws of political economy, especially as they governed the export of wheat from India to England. He only rolled the word rally in his mouth with a taste for its melody and strangeness, as he had been told often rolled the words of his science primer in the early old village days. All the coolies, including Tulsi, had sat down to adjust their shoulders to the sacks which lay on the platform, and they rose, some shaking, others straining, some with ease, and they began to walk away, bowed under the weight. Munnu had waited to see how to apply himself to the job. Having seen the others, he imitated their movements from the splitting on the hands to get a grip to heave, but unfortunately he could not lift the sack. His body, he felt he had surely missed some miraculous movement which the other coolies had confirmed. So he heaved and strained and shifted and sought the hidden secret of lifting the weight, but it was all in vain. Some other coolies came there for their second load. Munnu still sat straining his muscles to lift the weight. "Oye, leave it. You're seducer of your sister," said a middle-aged coolie paternally. "You will kill yourself. You should go and lift small weights in the vegetable market." But Munnu was intent on earning a relief for himself, for his master and his mistress. "Come and give me a hand so that I can stand," he said to Tulsi. Now page 123. Tulsi came out and lifted the sack on his back. Munnu arose, his legs trembling with his whole frame stretched tautly outwards to support the burden on his back. He took a step forward, two steps, 3 steps. Now he was underway, impelled by the mere weight of the sack to go forward in a sustained momentum. At a little ditch on the edge of the courtyard, his legs crossed, but he found his balance by an effort of will. His bare, supple body was sweating with the heat of violent exercise. He radiated a fire that glistened on his pale brown mouth. For a while he looked beautiful as he carried the burden. So finely strung were his muscles seemed, and so balanced were his emotions. Nay, then he had to cross the road. He lifted his left foot, and then, before deciding whether he should jump or take a long step, lifted his right foot. His feet hit each other, and he fell tottering on the ground, completely clear of the sack of grain, but an uprise of hard earth which stunned his head. "Oye, you lover of your mother!" shouted the merchant, jumping up from the platform of the top of the shop where he had settled to do accounts in an ochre-colored pillow. Oye, you illegally begotten! Who asked you to lift the sack? You who have hardly emerged from your mother's womb. Run away, you little rascal! I didn't see you go into the lift the ways, or I should have stopped you. You swine! Do you want to know? Do you want to have me sent to jail for murder? You son of a dog! Get away, you little wretch!